Welcome to the Bouquet Toss, the podcast that helps you plan your wedding day your way. We're your hosts, Jessica
and Sari, and each episode we pick apart the traditions and trends that you either love, hate, or don't understand to help us all figure out why we do weddings the way that we do. The Bouquet Toss is part of the Love Stories TV podcast network.
This episode is presented by Bloom Culture, making DIY wedding flowers stress-free with step-by-step guidance from ordering to arranging. Save thousands and create with confidence. Visit bloomcultureflowers.com to get started today.
And today, we're talking flowers.
Yes, they are always an area that couples seem to have a sticker shock over.
Oh, the biggest.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think you either you don't know and then you're like so shocked, or you come into it and you're like, everyone's told me flowers are so expensive. I don't know what to do. Do I need flowers? What do I do?
Right.
Which, let's be clear, you don't need flowers.
No, you can have a beautiful wedding without them, totally.
Absolutely. But I do think it's a little bit like you associate weddings with flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is one of those elements that seems to be present in most traditional celebrations.
Right. Because unless you're doing like a themed wedding, what else are you really putting at the center of a table? You know,
Right.
Like I've seen little things with like floating candles and like candles probably are the thing you're doing.
Yeah, candles are definitely the thing.
But if not, like, you know, we've seen books, we've seen things like that. But that's like if you're doing a theme. If you're not, it's typically flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely the go-to. And they're beautiful, obviously.
Absolutely.
But there's so many options that don't have to include all fresh flowers even.
That is true. I did not.
Yeah, absolutely.
I used silk flowers. I rented them, returned them. We'll get into that later in the episode.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of options. If you're going to go with fresh flowers and have a florist professionally do it for you, of course, that's going to be the most expensive option.
Yeah.
You can do that all the way down to
Amazon faux flowers.
Yeah.
In bud vases.
Which
they're pretty cute. I'm not going to lie.
Right? And like my sister got them for my shower. And then we used them for someone else's baby shower. I used them at my wedding for like the cocktail hour area.
Yeah.
And now they are a staple of the Bouquet Toss podcast.
Absolutely. And they're so cute.
Right.
Well, I think it would be interesting to share a little bit of a stat on the average cost or
Tell
average
me.
spend of wedding flowers. According to the Knot,
Okay.
the average cost of wedding flowers is $2,800, which is typically 8 to 10% of the total wedding budget.
I got to be honest with you. That seems hella low.
Yeah.
That's not in New York.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I'm
So
hearing
true.
things like 6,000
Yeah.
to 8,000.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
I was actually pretty surprised by this number too. I thought surely it's higher
Is
than
this
that.
2023?
Yeah, I think it was from 2023. And it also said, you know, fresh flowers can cost, you know, up to $500 per bouquet.
Yeah, they absolutely can.
Yeah. And obviously there's so many things that go into the different costs,
Right.
including like the area in which you're getting married. So,
Right, because like flowers grow in the ground and they don't grow everywhere. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, the fact that so many of the flowers that we see in weddings in the U.S. especially are coming from overseas, they're literally flying around the world to get here to be
Yeah.
used. That gets factored into the cost.
I bet you people didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah, a lot of flowers come from like South America and, you know, like tulips, I think a lot of them come from Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shop local.
Yeah, yeah. So it can definitely drive up the costs. And, you know, obviously seasonal availability is a
Yeah.
big factor too. Obviously, choosing flowers that are more readily in season during the time you're getting married is a way to cut. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this meme on Instagram, but like the biggest lie that Twilight told us was not the fact that you could marry a vampire or that vampires exist. It was the floral budget for
Yeah.
Bella's wedding.
Yeah.
Like, it is gorgeous. It's beautiful, but like nobody can actually
Well,
achieve that.
But like Edward was the one with the money.
True.
He's a million years
That's
old
true.
or whatever.
So, but yes, but nobody was clear, you know, when they gave us a dream of having a wedding that looked like that.
It's very true.
That's insane. And how do you even you can't even get that many flowers to a venue. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm mad. So, okay. let's say that you are going to choose to have flowers at your wedding.
Fresh flowers.
Right. We're starting with fresh.
Okay.
Let's say you choose to have fresh flowers at your wedding and a little bit don't know where to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you should keep in mind? Like, what makes the cost go up? Like, what's involved in what you're paying for? Because otherwise, I think it's hard to have like the respect for this like professional vendor when you're like, how much could the flowers cost? Like, what else goes into this?
I mean, first of all, there are hard costs, obviously. Like, you are getting product shipped to you. And when it's something as delicate as flowers, like, you have to order extra.
For sure.
In case things, die or wilt in transit, or if, blooms get knocked around in the boxes and stuff like that. And so when you work with a professional florist, they're often ordering extra to make up for any of that sort of like damage that could happen. But then oftentimes you're also working with them to do mock-ups, and they're spending money on the mock-ups to show you. Mm-hmm. And it's labor intensive work. It takes a lot of time to put together, depending on how many tables you have, 20 centerpieces, the bouquets, you want to keep them all, stocked and protected before they're being transported like to your venue and stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it. And of course, on like a high pressure day, a wedding day, you want everything to be perfect. Yeah. They have to kind of price things accordingly.
And the transportation of it, getting them in a truck or whatever it is and bringing them there. Absolutely. So how do you save money?
I mean, there's lots of ways you can save money. Like we talked about, you can opt for candles or other sort of things, or maybe supplement and do mix and match a little bit of each. You can totally do, the silk flower thing.
You can have a mix of both. You don't, right?
1,000,000%.
Like, silk flowers look so real that even if they are next to real flowers, you wouldn't be able to tell which is which.
Right. Honestly, the silk ones nowadays are just getting better and better in quality.
And they smell.
Yeah. Which is a nice extra special touch.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think it's great that you can mix and match. You could totally do silk arrangements on your tables, but maybe do fresh flowers for your bridal bouquets, bridesmaids bouquets, the groomsmen's boutonnieres, whatever. And so like mixing and matching, I think, is a great thing. Or, maybe you want to DIY.
So we're going to bring in the expert on DIY flowers.
We have to.
Miss Alison Fleck of Bloom Culture Flowers.
Perfect.
This episode is presented by Bloom Culture, making DIY wedding flowers stress-free with step-by-step guidance from ordering to arranging. Save thousands and create with confidence. Visit bloomcultureflowers.com to get started today.
Hi, Alison. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's just get into it and talk all things DIY flowers.
Please, let's do.
So sometimes we feel like DIYing your flowers in particular can be something people are afraid of. Maybe they think like they can't pull it off. Would love to get your idea, your feeling on like what can empower a couple to go this route and make everything look perfect for their day.
I think knowledge is key. I think a lot of people in all aspects of life are just afraid of the unknown. All of those what if questions. What if this happens? What if this happens? All the questions. How much do I order? What kind of flowers do I need? Again, it's just all the questions that just overwhelm a couple or their support crew that, sometimes we have a couple that is like, yes, I want to DIY, but then they tell their friends and family and they're like, no, why would you ever? And so again, it's all these fears of like, what's going to go wrong? It's like, well, here's how it's going to be a dumpster fire from everybody else. What we do is we just combat all the pain points. Every single question that you have, we have an answer for, or we will work with you to come up with a game plan. We're not just sending them out into the wild with some flowers and saying, you can do all of this. There's a very specific process we have them follow. There's a couple of different ways that they can interact with our company. One is a very handheld approach. One is it's just kind of to varying degrees, but I think it's truly just answering all those what if questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true of anything wedding planning related. We talk a lot about like the reason you hire vendors, the reason you have help is because you don't do this every day. You don't do this every week. And I think that that's something with flowers in particular, like you don't know what you don't know. There's truly so much in terms of like what flowers need to be fed and watered and to last and and how they look good together and what's in season and everything like that. So I think first of all, before I get to this, love that you said support crew, because I do think that is something, if you're DIYing anything for your wedding, flowers included, you do need to have a game plan of like, how is this stuff getting to your venue? Who's setting it up? Who's going to make sure it's all there? Like that is a big part of it. And so I really do like that you acknowledged that right from the start. But let's take a few steps back and give us like a full intro to Bloom Culture Flowers. We've been working with Bloom Culture at the Budget Savvy Bride for so long, and we're not gatekeeping here. So give everybody an idea of exactly what you get when you work with Bloom Culture.
When you work with Bloom Culture, you get a lot of things. And that's something that as a company has been a little bit hard to communicate concisely. You get a lot of things because there's a lot that goes into DIY wedding flowers. So I would say to start off the process, when you start interacting with our company, we have curated packages. So if you want to look at flowers already put together, you already have the numbers of the items that you think you want. You can just look through all of our packages and kind of pick and choose what works for you. If you like, our terracotta and blush package, which is really popular, or if you want a very classic green and white package, those are already pre-curated, set out for you. You can click what package you want, click what size you want, and it's done. Select your shipping date. With that, we always follow up with the recipes. So that again goes into thinking about a baking recipe. It has every single item that you're going to need. And then we have tutorials on how to put those together. So we get a lot of I would say our bread and butter is truly our customized packages where you can set up a consultation with us and you get to talk to one of our highly experienced florists. You set up a phone call and we just talk. We talk through all of your what ifs. We talk through, okay, I'm thinking this, but just a little bit of this, or how is this going to work out? I have my wedding is at this church and the reception is at this venue. What does transportation look like? So we talk through everything from traveling and putting together logistics through, I just really like this one flower and this one color is it in season. Sometimes we have support crew join the call. So, I mean, again, it's not a one size fits all approach. So again, it's sometimes hard to be concise with that. But at the end of the day, we have a process, whether you've gotten a package or whether you've gotten a customized consultation, that we funnel you through the same exact process. And we talk through all the questions. We get you the flowers you want, the size of package you want. We get you within budget. And then we talk to you about, okay, now you're going to get the flowers on this date. And one thing I haven't mentioned is that we've got a really lengthy DIY guide. And we have chapters on that. We have a chapter on how to support your support crew. So again, you're not a florist. And so when you have people that are helping you and they're like, okay, what do I do? And you're like, well, you put the flowers together. It's not that simple. So we have kind of your homework that you have to do before. So we've got sheets that you print out that you can hand out to each of your support staff, telling them exactly what to do, telling what tutorial to watch, giving them the recipes. Again, we have the process down to a timeline, how to troubleshoot. So sometimes I feel like a third grade teacher where I'm like, you have to do your homework. You can't just study the night before the test and expect to get an A. And, most of my clients laugh and some of them are like, you're annoying.
And the thing that has always struck me about Bloom Culture in particular is, so much of the wedding industry is very anti-DIY. They're like, why would you want to do this? Like your wedding day is already so stressful. There's so many moving pieces. Why would you want to add this to your plate? But like what you have created like really empowers people and like equips them with like the knowledge and the skills and the step-by-step instructions to pull it off and make, but you know, there's still going to be those naysayers like with all those questions, like you said. So like, what would you say to them to like combat that if they're like, why would you even consider DIYing your wedding flowers?
I think the answer here is I really wouldn't try to convince somebody to DIY. I'm not in the business of trying to, pull somebody over to the dark side of DIY. I think there is a big market out there for people who want to do this and who have the time to do this and who have the support crew. So I wouldn't try to convince anybody to DIY. We've got a big group of people that are considering it, but don't know if they can. Mm-hmm. I'm not going out there saying, have you guys, what have you thought about this? These are people who want to save some money. These are people who are in their neurosurgeon residency and they have a support crew that are like, babe's getting married in 3 months and we're going to help her do this. She's busy and we have the time and resources to do this. This is not a stigma of people who can't pay for full service. These are people who are going into this mindset, trying to really be budget conscious. Mm-hmm. It's
budget savvy, if you will.
Yeah, budget savvy. Absolutely. It's not saying, hey, you should do this. It's saying, hey, here's another option. Mm-hmm. Here's something else. Mm-hmm. And there's a big market of people out there who are looking for a different way to have florals at their weddings.
Yep.
And we are giving another resource and empowering people that I'm like, if you're down this rabbit hole, we're here for you. If you're Googling, if you're searching, if you're looking on the Budget Savvy Bride website for budget savvy ways to do your flowers, here's a fantastic option that is going to empower you to do this. I think, again, there's such a big stigma out there with DIY in that people are like, oh, you DIY'd. And with us, one of our main things is like, people are like, who did the flowers? And I'm like the bride or the couple get to be like, we did. And people's jaws are on the floor. And that's because they have wholesale quality. They have these are the blooms that I'm using in full service.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So they have wonderful quality of flowers and they have a wonderful resource to tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the best when we get photos from people and it's just jaw dropping, and you would never know if somebody hadn't said like, this wasn't a professional florist. So
yeah, it's like a point of pride. You get to say like, I did that.
Yeah. I like that you're pointing out that it's like, it's another option. And I think that that's really important because at this point, weddings are, everybody knows, like, they're so expensive. It's a thing that like you start planning and you're like, how can I cut? Where can I cut? There have to be ways. And there are. We've talked in length about having different like categories of vendors within all the people that you're using. And some are maybe on the more expensive side, some are on the less expensive side. But in general, you have options. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't realize is that there are options. And this is such a brilliant thing to have in the market because yes, you're giving people the ability to do it themselves. But like really you did it because you made the recipe. You like said, it's like paint by numbers, but with flowers. And
I have said that before. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I do think like you are getting a high touch point from an expert, but you are getting like, you're putting in a little bit more physical labor so that you can pay a little bit less. And that's ultimately what things come down to all the time within your budget. It's, do you have the time or do you have the money?
Yeah.
And I also love that you're learning something here. You're learning about flowers. You're touching them. You're like working with them. We always say that at the end of your wedding, you could put that you planned it on your work resume because of how much you learn and how much goes into it.
Literally.
This, like, you could. This is another thing where you're actually diving into the thing and learning about it, like learning how to cut the flowers, learning how to store it, like everything.
Maybe it becomes a bride hustle and you start arranging flowers for friends too.
Or even just in general.
That happen a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
And even just in general, like you now know, like when somebody gives you flowers, what to like. what to even do with them, because let's be real, most people don't.
So
you know?
true. And also, like, touching nature, like touching flowers and all that stuff, it's like stress relieving too, right?
It's
There's got to be
scientifically proven. Yeah, it's scientifically proven to brighten your mood. I think in the context of weddings, there's so much stress going around, and again, it has to be the couple's choice, and it has to be, you have to set people up for success.
Yeah.
And if, you know, if they don't feel empowered, if they don't feel confident, they're not going to have that feeling of joy or
calm,
you know, pleasure having done this, you know? And so that's one of the best parts is, you know, if we get a review, it's a little bit about us, but it's more about their experience. It's more about the experience that they had with their family and their friends putting that together. And I think, what is a wedding if it's not building memories and experiences with the people that you love and that you want to surround yourself, and having something even before that's not at, like, you know, there's not as high pressure as like a bachelorette party or a party or a gathering where you're like, I have to make, you know, I have to be presentable. Like, you can just be in your sweats and with your girls and your hair's in a pony, like whatever, like it's so no pressure there. And you're just sitting around creating memories with, and most of the times it's women. We've had some same-sex couples that it's whoever you're with, but again, creating those memories with, you know, those women that you love or those people that you love. And that's typically what the reviews are about. It gave me a moment to just create these memories. And I think that is a beautiful layer added in on top of everything else.
Yeah. You're alluding to it, but let's just like paint the picture. So what you're talking about here is like, you know, you have your consultation with Bloom Culture Flowers, you order all the right pieces that you need. They come to you, right? And then you can have, maybe it's the night before your wedding, maybe it's 2 nights. I'm sure. Nope. It's the night before your wedding.
No, it's not the night before. No,
it's not.
We have a timeline. We ship out on Mondays and Tuesdays. And there's a lot of misconceptions about like, well, I need a cooler. The flowers are going to die.
How long do they last?
They last a really long time. They should have at least a week vase life. So I use the same process for our DIY clients that I use for my full service. I had a really bad experience a couple of years ago where my cooler froze, and it froze an entire wedding. And we won't get into that, but that was awful. So I never trusted a cooler again. So I did all of my weddings without a cooler, and I figured out how to do that and when to do it. So we have them follow the exact same timeline. The flowers will either ship on a Monday or Tuesday, and arrive on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we have you know, go through the process from there. We don't want you to dive right into the flowers. They need to hydrate. They're going to be a little sleepy, a little sad looking. I mean, I feel like crap after I travel. So like, we need to get them some rest, you know, perk them up a little bit, get them some food. They're a little hangry. And so we say, you know, let's get them some rest and some water. Let's hydrate them. And it's like night and day, you know, you walk it, you process them according to, we have tutorials and we have the DIY guide. And it's like, you know, we even like, okay, like we have in the DIY guide, like 4 months out, here's what we're doing, 2 months out, 1 week out, 1 day before they come, let's prep, let's get this going. Let's lay some tarps down. Let's have all of your supplies ready. Like we have the checklists. I mean, we're really type A here. So, let's get ready for it. The flowers arrive, you know what to do. The next day on Thursday, they're hydrated, they're prancy, like I call them. And that's when we start doing, you know, we'll break it down for each item that you need. We typically do bouquets because those have a direct water source, and things that don't have a direct water source we'll push to Friday, again, for like a Saturday wedding. So all of this is really adjustable. So, you know, but again, when we give you like, okay, your first one's it's going to frustrate you. It's going to take the longest time. So like the first centerpiece, like it's okay if that takes you 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Like and you've never worked with flowers. And even in all of my tutorials, I'm like, sometimes you just need to like walk away for a minute. Like sometimes you're just like, you're the human, it's the flower, but it's still going to frustrate you. Sometimes it's like a little toddler and you're like, Mom, it's going to take a break. I'm going to go take a time out. But yeah, I mean, we talk through all of that process, but it's again, you know, a little bit different than what people are used to thinking as like a retail florist. You know, they have a cooler and they're not waiting for a certain day that like all of their flowers are going to go out like for a wedding. So you want your flowers to come to room temp and open up, and you don't want your roses to be really closed. You want them to be relaxed and full and open. And so we have the timeline set up specifically that, you know, your roses or your flowers will be open and, you know, max beautifulness on your wedding day. So
love it.
It's so smart.
Lots of moving parts, but we walk you through them.
So if you're picking out centerpieces that you're going to make, do you have options for like, I don't know, a gold vase that they go in versus like a silver one, or like how do the people that are ordering the flowers have to buy that separately? How do you kind of figure all of that out?
Currently, we don't have room for what we call hard goods, so vases. So that is in our, you know, 5-year plan, is to be able to offer specific options for vases. Right now, we don't specifically have, here's a gold vase option, here's a silver vase option. What's more important to us is the size of the vase, the shape of the vase, you know, how big it is. So we have multiple tutorials ranging from a small centerpiece, which we will give dimensions for, which is typically, you know, 3.5 to 4.5 in diameter opening. The opening is really the big key here. Filling that diameter, you want to make sure you have enough blooms. So we talk more in measurements when we're communicating with our couples. And we do talk heavily in scale. So if you are wanting something for a larger scale for your ceremony, perhaps we will talk about that. If it's a taller scale, we need to know these things. So for our packages, we've got pretty set numbers and pretty set options. We have a supplies list that says, hey, if you're making this type of centerpiece, here are the options that we would recommend. When you're going the custom route, I'm like, email me a photo of what you're using. And that way I can make sure without a shadow of a doubt, we've got the scale correct. We've got the size of blooms correct. Cause I don't want to use a giant hydrangea for a small centerpiece, because for me, the scale's a little bit off, but we do want to use larger blooms for larger scaled pieces, such as an arbor, a ceremony urn, an aisle statement piece. You really want to be able to communicate scale appropriately. And that's kind of where we go with vases and things like that. It's kind of up to our clients, our customers, to decide the aesthetics of them. Okay, if I want a gold, I need to know if it's a compote, if it's got a shallow base, and then I can tell you this is how you would arrange in a compote. I need to know if it's a see-through glass vase, because I need to tell you, okay, like we've got to keep the water really clean because it can get really muddy in there and you can see through that. So there's a lot of transparency. So that's kind of what we more so focus on.
Okay.
And when you're working with bloom culture, you're getting that like expert advice and guidance from, I mean, you're a Martha Stewart, like endorsed florist, right? Like,
yes.
So you're getting like that advice and that knowledge to help make those decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's so helpful too.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're flying blind otherwise. Like,
yeah. But so now
you
that
are
you've
flying
done
blind
this,
otherwise.
Oh,
like,
you are. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How else would you, you can't. This is so... Yes. But so my next question would be, okay, you figured, you've given them the instructions, they've put them all together, they've practiced, they've done all the things, right? What is your advice for them now getting these things to their venue? Because are they already put together? Are they bringing them in pieces? Like that's a big part of, doing this yourself.
Logistics is a big one. Yeah.
Logistics. I have gone through the gauntlet so they don't have to. And it really depends on what you have and what scale your wedding is. We've done weddings that are really small to where I'm like the couple, if you just have some vases of bouquets and some boutonnieres, you can put those in the back of your car. We tell you to save your boxes. So whatever the flowers come in, those are going to be some pretty substantial boxes. Save those boxes and pack and nestle things into the flat portion of either your back seat or of an SUV. If you're doing bud vases, I always tell everybody, like, go to your local liquor store and ask for their old wine boxes, because they've already got sectioned out pieces. The blooms aren't bumping into each other. You can just set them down in there. You can take the box in, and then you can just literally set them down at your table. If you are doing larger pieces, if you are doing an arbor, you will be transporting buckets. We have, again, this is where, when you get into larger scale weddings, we're like, we need your Aunt Tammy, who is type A, that you can rely on. And Tammy's like, what can I do?
Yeah.
You use our DIY guide and you write down, this is what you can do.
Yeah.
And you start to delegate before that time, so that people can look at the sheet and say, okay, we have centerpiece A and centerpiece B. Centerpiece A goes here. Centerpiece B goes here. So you even
made
if you're
a little map for your wedding, it was very helpful.
If you're, and if you're working with a planner, they typically will have a venue layout for you with the tables and everything's laid out. So you can either do it on a computer, but label everything, and then label your centerpieces too. And again, this is what I would do in full service. It's not that hard to translate a lot of this to DIY. It's just, oh, I didn't think to do that.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know to do that. So, there's a lot of moving pieces, but it's super important to delegate. Right. We take in mind that if you're the bride or the groom of the day of, you're wanting to get ready. You're not wanting to set up. And again, you can make that choice for yourself. We've had some people help set up the reception, and then go get ready and go about their day. It really is, there's not a one size fits all approach to it. So again, if you've got a larger wedding, you just have to delegate. And the most successful weddings have those helpers, those people that can easily take the task and execute it. I mean, like, if they're not all in, like, find somebody else. We've had conversations with people where I'm like, do you have 10 people? Do you have 10 the timeline's not going to work. You're going to a venue where you're staying at an Airbnb, and there's so many moving parts that I really want you to be successful, and I really want you to enjoy your wedding day. So this might not be the best option if we can't get X, Y, and Z planned out.
Right.
So I'm not in the business of convincing people to do it. I'm in the business of empowering people to do it. And if that means, like, hey, I don't know, I don't have a good feeling about this, I'm not gonna bend over backwards if I am not really sure that that's going to be a successful experience for them.
Yeah. And at that point, then they just, I assume, step up to the full service option. They still get all of the things you planned and all the things you put together, and then you just take all the stress away and do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning you, not them. Do it yourself.
Yeah. If they're local.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that, like, all around, this is something, I love the way that you're posing it as, it's not for everybody. It's not something you would convince anybody to do if they didn't have the resources and the support. I do think that it is, we talk about this a lot, but when somebody gets to be involved in your wedding, especially make a centerpiece, they feel so much more, like, proud and, like, just so much more happy and
like a part of it.
Yeah.
They're contributing to the success of the day.
Right. So I would say that for anybody who does want to do this, but is concerned that this will rely heavily on other people, and, like, they're asking people to kind of work, that, the right people want that. And they are typically, really happy to do that. So I know
when I got married, I had people, what can I do? And I'm like, show up. I don't know. Just come to the wedding.
But come.
I had so many people that just genuinely wanted to help. And even if it's like, hey, when the ceremony's done, can you round up all the bridesmaids' bouquets and put them in vases on the table? It's as simple as that,
Yeah.
It's as simple as saying, like, can you move this from point A to point B? I mean, there's various degrees of involvement. So if you're like, I don't really want, my grandma making a centerpiece, that's okay. She can do something else. She can hold your bouquet. She can place your bouquet at your sweetheart table. So,
Well, and
Yeah, I
there's
think
like
that there's
varying levels too, right? Like they don't have to DIY all the flower arrangements for their weddings.
No.
They could just do the bouquets or like the personal flowers and
Yeah,
do
that's a good
something
point.
else, you know?
Yeah, mix and match. And that's a great point. Like, it's just the more research you do, the more you know, the more options you will have. And so you can say, I can't build an archway or, and I envision this as part of the flowers and, I can't do that myself, but you could maybe do your bouquets and doing that with your bridesmaids, like that's fun for them too and meaningful for them too. So yeah, I mean, just all around, I think it's great. We started here and we're going to come full circle back to it. Like this is something that is it's another option that a lot of people don't know is out there, but it will cut costs for you in varying degrees of how much you can DIY. So we're so glad that we can talk about it, show, more of the options and have you talk about the expertise that you have. It's amazing what you've done and how you empower couples.
We've had people that, don't feel comfortable doing their bridal bouquet, but they're like, we got the centerpieces. I'm like, that's fine. Right. And I think that again, with being budget savvy at the foundation of this conversation, you really have to figure out what you can spend, what you want to spend. Maybe not like just because you can also doesn't mean you should.
So true.
But what you want to spend. I mean, we have, a lot of people are like, well, how much can I expect to spend? And I would say entry level for DIY arrangements. Again, it depends on the scale and how much you want to do, but we're talking about anywhere from around $450 as an entry point. I would say you have to keep in mind most of that goes to flowers. We also have shipping involved in that. But we've had weddings go up to probably around 2,500. And those are large weddings. Those are the big ones that I'm like, we got to talk about. You need some people to help you. Like you need that. But I mean, people can literally save thousands. Yeah. And I've seen people save thousands by DIYing it or even having the combination, of we did this, we hired full service for that. I mean, I am a full service florist. I'm not in competition with anybody. My goal is for our brides and our clients and our couples and our families to have a positive experience and for them to make the choice themselves. I think that was one thing that was really frustrating is I think that couples can feel like, well, this is how it's done. This is how I have to do it. This is
right. This is what it costs and there's no other option, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Alison. This was so nice to actually get into the depths of all the details here. There's still so much more. So we're so glad we could talk with you. We're so glad everybody could hear this and happy flowers.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very, very much.
This episode is presented by Bloom Culture, making DIY wedding flowers stress-free with step-by-step guidance from ordering to arranging. Save thousands and create with confidence. Visit bloomcultureflowers.com to get started today.
That was such a good conversation.
She's such a wealth of knowledge.
Seriously.
And I still have never DIY'd flowers before, but now I feel like I kind of want to.
I really want to. I'm like, what can I do this for? Who can I convince?
Who's getting married next that we can be like your DIY floral squad?
We'll be your crew. Okay. The other thing that we have to touch on though is especially if you're DIYing, how do you figure out how to repurpose your flowers?
Yeah.
I did this for my wedding. I had lining the ceremony aisle. I had 2 different kinds of arrangements that then were moved to tables.
Yep.
So curious, and I'd seen other people do it, right? So curious, what are other ways for you to repurpose them?
Yeah. I mean, I think for one thing, it's a great tip to be able to repurpose your ceremony flowers to your reception. You're only paying for them once, but you're getting to use them in both locations.
Yep.
Ideally, if you're getting married in the same location, that makes it much easier.
But even if you're not,
yeah,
put it in someone's car.
Yeah.
Make them take it.
Absolutely. You got to have those helpers designated to delegate things to.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of couples, taking their bridal party bouquets and repurposing them as centerpieces or putting them on their cake table, their guest book table, their gift table, things like that. Anytime you can reuse and repurpose things, it just gives it, double duty, working more for
more
your
bang
money.
for your buck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, this is a question that I have for you before we wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still a thing that like it's expected that guests will take a centerpiece home, like floral centerpiece home?
You've
never heard of this?
I've never heard of it as an expectation. I've heard of it in the fact where the couples will tell their guests, like, oh, be sure to take a centerpiece home or something.
So I feel like it's become, in some ways, it became, maybe it's a New York thing, I don't know, but like people
there
just
are
kind
regional
of
trends like that.
Maybe, right? It could be a regional thing, but like people kind of just expect, because what else are you doing with flowers, right? Although I have heard that if you donate them after to like a
nursing home,
it's a tax write-off.
Yeah, I think
is that true, or is that TikTok fake?
I mean, I've heard that, but we should bring in an expert to verify that.
Yeah, let's verify. Let's fact check that. But I do think, like, so when I use my silk flowers, my mom was really concerned that people were going to take it because they just like assumed,
oh my gosh,
that they could take it, and it's like they look so real, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, surely no one's going to do that unless the DJ gets on the mic and says something like, oh, the couple would like you to take, right? And she was like, I don't know, you might be worried. Like,
wow.
But then it wasn't a problem.
Okay.
Nobody took anything. We returned the right amount, but
I wonder where mom got that idea.
I know. I'm so curious, but it is another thing that when you do use real flowers, that's another fun thing that becomes part of it.
It's true.
You can give each of your centerpieces or your bouquets or anything to people as they leave. And it's just another like take home. And yeah, it's nice. People like that.
Yeah, I like that. I think some other sort of like advice things that I would tell people when it comes to like maximizing your floral spend is like kind of focusing on like high impact areas of your wedding. Like maybe you want to do like a floral arch, but you could do the arch with silk flowers or something.
Right. Mix and match.
Yeah. And then, things like you could repurpose that and put it on your sweetheart table at your reception. So that's another good sort of like repurpose or reuse swap.
Yeah, I like that. I think encouraging like a mix, like we talked about with Alison, of different things you can do. If you choose to DIY, maybe it's not all DIY. If you choose real versus faux, maybe it's some of both, There are options. I think that is the biggest takeaway here, is that flowers can seem like the thing that you get like locked into for the wedding, and you're like, oh, well, I need them, and so whatever it costs. But no, there actually are a lot of options.
Yeah, luckily there's more options than ever. And so for anyone who's DIY curious, they can explore that as an option.
Yeah. So did you want to play a keep it or toss it before you leave?
Absolutely.
Okay. Baby's breath bouquets.
I'm going to say keep.
I'm going to say keep. Okay. I cut to like 4 or 5 years ago when I was like curating Instagram and stuff for Budget's Happy Bride. And I would constantly see these like just stunning, different colored baby's breath. And this one bride did like a rainbow of like each person. It was only baby's breath, but each one had a different color. And I thought it was the coolest thing.
I love the dyed ones.
I really thought for a second that that's what I was going to do. And I ended up not doing it. But people think that, oh, you like put baby's breath in like as a mix in other, arrangements, and it just kind of helps fill it, and they're a little bit cheaper. But by themselves, they look so good, and I feel like it's an underrated option.
I agree. I think it's so sweet, and like there's something just sort of like ethereal about it to me. And I mean, there are definitely some baby's breath haters out there, but I'm still...
Why though? Like,
I don't know. I think it's because some people say like, oh, it's just the cheap option or whatever. But I'm sorry.
So
I think
cool.
it looks chic.
Right? It's chic.
I'm still into it.
Me too. Okay. Floral hoops or baskets instead of bouquets.
I'm into an alternative.
I'm into an alternative, but I don't know. I feel like the floral hoop thing like had a moment and the moment left, and I'm not sure why. Like, I think it's cool, but what do you do with it after?
That's fair. I mean, I guess you could take the hoop, because often the flowers are just around the bottom portion of the hoop. You could put it down on the centerpiece of the table, I guess, and put a vase in the middle of
like
it or
have
something.
it literally down. Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess you could do that.
Or you could put two of them so it makes a full circle, I guess, if you put them back to back.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to be resourceful. I'm like, how can we use this twice?
Yeah. And that's, I think, that my biggest hang up with it. Like, it looks cool and it looks like, oh, like they did something totally different, which I love.
Ooh.
Tell me.
You could hang them on the wall behind the sweetheart table.
I was thinking like almost like a donut wall, but it's your your hoops.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Change my mind. That's fair. Okay. Vegetables, fruit, or produce in wedding decor.
I'm gonna say toss, to be honest.
Tell me why.
I mean, it can be more affordable potentially, but these days with inflation and the cost of like fresh produce, is it actually any cheaper?
Okay, that's fair. Unsure. I'm keeping it.
But well, maybe we should be more specific. Like,
go ahead.
I mean, there's so many options. I mean, are we talking about apples? Are we talking about oranges? Are we talking about literally? Okay, I have to say this actually. I was just at Wedding MBA, which is one of the biggest wedding conferences in the U.S. And, vendors from all across the country were there. And there's a presentation every year on the trends of the moment. And they put up on the screen. And do you know what a croquembouche is? Like, so for anybody who doesn't know, it's like little tiny like donuts that are stacked like little balls to make some sort of like tower. And it's a dessert. It's pretty to look at and everything else. But they put up on the screen that, vegetables, fruit, produce is like trending in weddings. And one of the examples they put up was Brussels sprouts made into a croquembouche statue. And I was like, I don't know
for
if
people
I'm
to eat
into
or
it.
just to look at it.
Just to look at it.
I'm not into that.
I'm not either.
I feel even more. I already have I feel a type of way about like the waste of a single use flower moment.
Yeah, right?
I feel more bad about it when it's food that like could have been eaten because it's probably not going to if it was used as decor.
Well, and if people's hands were all over it, who knows?
Oof. Okay. All right. So then I'm with you on a toss. But what I was thinking about for keep is just like when they literally put one like piece of fruit on everybody's plate.
Oh, I like that.
I love that.
But that's not replacing like a centerpiece.
You're right. Okay. Toss it. All right. Last one. Monochromatic flower arrangements.
I mean,
does this mean that it's different types of blooms, but they're all the same color?
It could be different types of blooms. Or it could all be just one type of flower in a single color. Yeah. So you're going to toss it.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to toss that. I think I could maybe be convinced that if it was different types of flowers, but they were all the same color, I feel like that actually is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I love, like, part of why I love flowers is just like the infusion of color. And it just like, I feel like you don't really have opportunities for that at a venue. I mean, unless you have like a really crazy swanky venue that has all of that. And so this is like your opportunity to get that. And with one, I don't know.
It's tough. I think, we've had a definite trend of people trying to be timeless with their color scheme. So we're seeing so many like beige bridal parties with white flowers. And it's like, make weddings colorful again, And that was actually one of the things they said in that trends talk was that color was really making a comeback. And I am excited for that because I, like you, I really enjoy like seeing the colors of the flowers.
Yeah.
Especially if you're paying for fresh flowers, they cost so much anyway. Like, yeah.
I mean, flowers are a self-expression moment, part of your wedding. So really, I think what we learned, especially from Alison today, is that there are options. The more knowledge you have, the more you're armed with, like just the better decision-making that you can do.
For sure. And the better you can creatively express yourself through your flowers.
All right. Love flowers.
Yeah.
This was so great. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bouquet Toss from the team at thebudgetsavvybride.com. The Bouquet Toss is part of the Love Stories TV podcast network.
Your support for the show makes it all possible, so don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform and follow Budget Savvy Bride on social media.
As always, stay savvy and stay tuned for our next episode.
This episode is presented by Bloom Culture, making DIY wedding flowers stress-free with step-by-step guidance from ordering to arranging. Save thousands and create with confidence. Visit bloomcultureflowers.com to get started today.